Welcome to another episode of Bright Headed Publishing Audiobook Book Club. I am your host, Kelly Morgan. I am really excited today to bring you a multi-talented author, narrator, evangelist, motivational speaker, mental health advocate, Angie B. Now, I met Angie B on Facebook. And in speaking with her, she had a wealth of information that I wanted to share with the listening audience and share with the book club as soon as possible. She is part of the Fresh Book Festival, which runs this weekend, January 8th and 9th. She is also a part of a project called The Confinement Chronicles, which is a project that was a collaborative between many writers who shared their experiences during COVID. She is also an audiobook narrator and has an audiobook company and can help you turn your book into an audiobook. Please welcome the newest member of the book club, the multi-talented Angie B. Angie, thank you so much for being here with me today. Thank you for being a member of PHP Audiobook Book Club. Welcome. How are you?
Oh, honey, I am wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sister Kelly. I appreciate you more than I can describe. I appreciate your passion for doing this podcast. And I thank you for being on the same page, trying to help other authors to get to where they want to be. So thank you for having me on the show. I pray that we say something today that will encourage somebody else.
Me too. My mission with the podcast is to help authors promote their books, get a chance to talk about their craft and their gift. But I also enjoy and want to promote people like yourself who are not necessarily an author, but offer services to support authors and help them reach whatever goals they have. So in you being with me here today, tell the listeners what it is that you do. And, let's talk more about it.
Well, thank you again for the opportunity. I'm honored to be a published author. That's an important aspect of my ministry. I am Evangelist Angie B. I am ordained and prophetic, which means somebody saw fit to make me a leader in the spiritual realm. And it gives me a reason to come to people to say, you know what? The Lord told me to tell you. And by being a published author, the Lord can work through me as well. My journey began when I was raising my children. I was in a domestically violent marriage. My children were in middle school, and I began not only gaining weight, but receiving several diagnoses. High blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, just too many to name. And sometimes when you're drowning in health and physical challenges, that can affect your mind. And so the first of 3 attempts at suicide, the Lord spoke to me. And after the 3rd attempt, he said, now go to your computer and write down what I tell you. So my very first book is entitled Last Week I Wanted to Die, because that was the only response I had while I was hospitalized in the mental health hospital. They put you in the group setting and they want you to share, kind of like Alcoholics Anonymous. We see it on TV, hi, my name is John and my last drink was 54 days ago. And so the doctor comes around and says, okay, why are you here? And I said, well, I'm here because last week I wanted to die. And that ended up being the name of my very first book. And the book not only describes my mental health challenges and how God got me through them, but it got me on the path to wanting to share more and more and more. It's almost like for some people, once you have one child, you want to have another. For others, once you write one book, you want to write another. So my first book talked about my mental health challenges and how God healed me. The second book talked about how God healed my body to where I lost nearly 200 pounds. And
Wow.
the type 2 diabetes was reversed and the high blood pressure was gone, and the GERD, no more acid reflux and no more sleep apnea. And okay, God, I'm ready, set to go. What you want me to do? And a ministry was launched, and we went on tour, and a radio show was launched, and the book got promoted, and people started asking me to come and speak. And then all of a sudden I met this man. And I said, Lord, what you want me to do with him? And now 7 years later, that man, we've been married for 7 years. We wrote our first book together, which is a whole different kind of concept. It's one thing when you write your own book. It's another thing when you want to write what you remember, and then somebody else wants to write it the way they remember it.
Right.
Man, that's a whole different ballgame right there. So then we wrote a book together. And I could go on and on. I'm a radio show host and a preacher, so sometimes you got to cut me off. But the exciting thing about my journey is I've been through so many pitfalls. I've tried to write stories with characters and people conversing with each other. I've tried to write just what the Lord said to write. I would write my portion of a book, and an editor would come and change everything. And then because I was doing a radio show, people would send me books and say, would you please read my book on the air? It sounds so good coming from your voice. Oh, okay, that's fine. So now we're producing audiobooks, and we work with other authors that maybe don't want to go the self-publishing or the publishing route. They want to go straight to audio. The bottom line is, share what you have. Share your testimonies. Share what you've learned. Share what may have frustrated you, because you're not the only one that needs to know about it. And that's pretty much me in a nutshell. I've written my favorite book right now that I've written is Motherhood. It is about motherhood. It's entitled Ma. I'd love to share some of it with your listeners today. And during the pandemic, we produced a compilation audiobook series entitled Confinement Chronicles, where nearly 50 other people who some thought about being an author, some never thought about it, but they wrote what they were experiencing during the pandemic, and we narrated it, and it is now available. So I feel like I've gone through enough potholes and pitfalls to be able to at least try to steer somebody around the road.
I think your journey sounds wonderful. And you probably had a light bulb go off in somebody's head who said, I can go straight to audio. Because I think the misconception is, or the journey that's always been traveled by most authors is, you write it, right? You publish it. And then when it's good enough, or you've got enough sales, or you've got enough readers or followers, then you do an audiobook. And that is not necessarily true, where you could just go straight to audio. And I don't think most people even thought about that. And it's nice that you are a published author. How many books do you have?
I currently have Last Week I Wanted to Die. It has it was republished through Ladero Press on December 25th. So it's a Christmas baby now. I'm excited about that. It was republished. We have Evolution of the Queen Bee, how I went from all those health challenges, and over 3 years, I wrote a magazine article chronicling my weight loss journey. And at the end of 3 years, I put them all into a book. Sometimes people don't think about taking their journals or their sermons or something that they're writing on a regular basis and making it into a book. So I have that one as the second one. The third one is In the Beginning, There Was God, Me, and You. That's the book that I wrote with my husband, Barty, where we talked about how he was never getting remarried and I was never going to submit to another black man. I just was not. And God said, no, y'all need each other. And we met, dated, and married in under 6 months. And that was 7 years ago. Yeah. So I have that one. I have the book Ma, Why Hearing God's Voice is Essential to Motherhood. And I'm excited about Ma because I actually forgot what I wrote So sometimes I go back through it and that was good. Let me,
Right.
trying to raise a grown child and boys versus girl. Girl, after you gone, let me read some of that. So that's a good one. And then, we just wrote in the beginning, there was God, me, and you too, which is like our journey over the first 7 years of being married and doing ministry together, doing music together, because my husband is a singer. We do a weekly Facebook live show together on Wednesday nights. So that's in the book. And we just submitted that to the publisher, and the publisher is cracking up because that's the funniest, the funniest book that she's written in a long time. And then, like I said, the Confinement Chronicles is an audiobook series. There are 10 volumes that people can download and listen to, all with different subjects that when the doors of the church closed during the pandemic, faith, hope, how some people got paid during the pandemic, how some people were dealing with cancer during the pandemic. I am a bald woman from alopecia. So we did a whole volume with other alopecians like me that talked about losing their hair and alopecia awareness. We did that during Alopecia Awareness Month. And the publisher also has those manuscripts to make that into a book. So to answer your question, there's a lot. I may not have written as many books as there are chapters in the Bible, but it looks like I'm getting there.
Wow. And that's really impressive. And I'm glad that we connected. Now, we connected through Facebook, and I will be the first one to admit I am not a fan of Facebook. It is not my favorite social media platform, but I am on Facebook. And because of Facebook, I have met wonderful people like yourself. Oh. So I guess I should take back that I don't like Facebook. There are aspects of Facebook I do not like. So I have to change that because Facebook has really helped me connect with people like yourself, you know, who can bring knowledge and wisdom to those who are maybe thinking about getting published. Maybe somebody is looking at a vanity press publisher and not knowing what that means. And being able to talk to somebody who can maybe give you some insight. Because one thing I know about a vanity press, and I'm not saying that all vanity presses are bad.
Right.
And
you get what you pay for.
Right. Vanity Press is a publisher where you have to invest in the publishing process. Unlike a traditional publisher who will take you on because they believe that they can sell and market your work, a vanity press needs you to help pay for the print and all the things that go into that book. And so sometimes you're paying out thousands of dollars and you're getting nothing in return.
Well, sometimes you do get your book in your hand.
Yes, you do get a book in your hand.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean you know what to do with it.
Right. You know? Exactly.
Cooks don't know how to clean. Authors don't know how to promote. You know, school teachers don't know how to preach. You got to recognize where your strengths and weaknesses are. And you're right. Vanity presses don't leave you with much. If you've got a book, then what do you do with it? And that can be one of the limitations of going the vanity press route. It can be.
So talk to me about the audiobook process and how that works. I don't really know much about audiobooks. I know that I have Audible. I listen to audiobooks. I enjoy audiobooks, but I don't know how that process works or how you would even get started and what the price tag is for that. Because when I think audiobook, my brain goes to dollar signs. I'm thinking it's got to be so expensive to do that. But I hear people doing it more. It's becoming more and more popular. It's something that you do. So I'm really interested in how that works.
Well, my passion for producing audiobooks came as a child. I was born in 1965, so that tells you my age. But as a child, I received these albums, these Disney albums that were books like Pinocchio, Cinderella, Snow White. And what you would do is you take the album and put it on the record player and drop the needle, and it would read you, this is the story of Snow White, and now beep, turn the page. And then as a child, you turn the page and you'd read along, and all of a sudden you'd figure out that they're saying the word was, and you're looking at WAS. And so the audio helped you to learn to read. For me, it did. and it can help expand your vocabulary and just completely open up the world of fantasy and knowledge and wisdom. So I like to say that listening can also be literary. Reading can take you places, but excuse me, listening can do the same thing. And so when I recognized that I loved to listen to someone read a story to me, it became obvious that my mother was not the one that was going to sit and read me a book at night. Because she had things to do. She was busy. So when I decided to launch an audiobook production company, I envisioned that some people would take these stories and play them for their children when they were too busy to sit and read. I envisioned that there would be blind people, that because there are blind people that don't know Braille,
right?
That, would learn and be enriched by listening to audiobooks. I envisioned that authors would receive a different selling audience because they offered an audiobook. If you think back maybe 10 years ago when people just had hardcover books and softcover books, and then folks talked about how expensive it was to print it, and they had a box of books under their bed. So what did we do? We turned our manuscript into a PDF, and now we offer an ebook, which is much cheaper to purchase, much cheaper to sell. You ain't got to mail it off to nobody. Just get their email address. You can email it to. Well, the same applies for an audiobook and that listening, enriching literacy campaign. For authors, if you, let me back up a little bit. If you're an author and you're trying to sell a book to somebody, in your mind that you paid for that book. You paid a good $20 for that book. So you got to get at least $10 back. But what if somebody comes to you, oh, I really would love, but I only got $5. Okay, if you give them your book, you've lost money. Mm-hmm. But if you email them the ebook, you may not even hear back from them because maybe they scrolled through, maybe they downloaded it, maybe they didn't. But you have a better chance of saying, okay, well, give me your $5 and your email address. You email them both the ebook and the audiobook where they can read along, and they love you. They're messaging you. They're following. Oh, that was great. I loved listening. I loved reading along. What else do you have? You got you a client that's waiting for you to write the next thing because they feel like you did them a favor. Not only did you stay within their budget, but it didn't cost you anything to stay within their budget because the manuscript, it's easy enough to turn it into an ebook. Now, if I take all that passion and that desire and I say, I want all these authors to have an audiobook, let me figure out a way for them to do it. This is how Angie B Productions does it. Angie B Productions will charge per page. So some production companies will say per finished hour and per editing and all of that. I get that. But I also get that the goal is to give you something that you can use to make money and to get your book out to people. So what we do is we charge per page and we charge per character. So say, for example, I've been listening to one of your books that you have, You Sound White. Mm-hmm. And you may have 3 or 4 characters in that book. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean we need 3 or 4 voice actors. It could be 2 or 3 voice actors that could be the voices for 4 or 5 characters. Okay, so that saves you a little bit of money. Your book may be 30 pages in length. So our regular rate is $10 a page, but we invoice through PayPal and we offer 3 payments. So you take that $300, break it down into 3 payments. The first payment is due when we start. Now, if we say we take 4 to 6 weeks, that gives you 4 to 6 weeks to come up with the next payment.
Right.
By the time we receive the next payment, you've received your audiobook. You're listening for any mistakes. You're listening for anything that you may want changed. Maybe one of us said the word Stephen and the name was Stefan. You jot those changes down and send them to us. In the meantime, we're working on 3 promotional videos for you. So often people have an audiobook and nobody knows what it sounds like. We're making these promotional videos for you to post to social media or email to people to say, look, my audiobook is almost finished. Would you like to be a sponsor of my audiobook? Send me $50. I'll send it to you. I'll send you the book. We all have people that want to invest in our success, but they want to see what you're doing. What have you invested in so far? So get you some sponsors. Get your grandma and them that got your first book and never read it. It's on the shelf somewhere. But when they can hear and when they can see what you're doing, they can get excited about that. You can start taking advance orders. Hey, my audiobook is going to be on sale. It's going to be $25, but I sell it to you now for $15. Right? There's so many different ways that you can finance your dream. The same way we can finance the printed book. You can ask the church members to come up with an offering for you and list that the XYZ Baptist Church is a proud sponsor, including the Mother's Board, the Usher Board, the Deacon Board. We have to get out of ourselves and thinking we have to finance this all by ourselves. It's going to be too expensive. How are we going to get our money back? And let's go to the audience that we would go to if we had a finished product in our hand. People do it all the time. They have a business. They don't invest their light bill money into the business. They go get somebody else's money and invest in the business. People don't.
That is true.
So if we look at being an author as being a business owner, then it doesn't matter how much it costs, because it's what you need to do to get the product out there.
And I don't think most authors are entrepreneurs or think about the business side. When you self-publish and you're doing all these things and all these marketing and all this promotion, you are not thinking about the business side of things. And that is taking your book from your manuscript
correct
to a finished product. And that's the editing, the formatting, the cover, everything. And I know that when I was writing my book, those things never entered my head, because I was just happy to have the book. Number one, to be writing the book.
Right.
Number two, finish the book.
Right.
And then when somebody said, oh my God, this is the best thing since sliced bread, let's publish your book. Well, then you couldn't talk to me, because by my clock now, I should be speaking to Oprah about my book. Right. But it didn't work out that way, because there was so many misconceptions and pitfalls that I had ran into, and I didn't know where to go to get the information that I needed to be successful.
I'm working with a gentleman right now who was incarcerated for some time in his life. And while he was incarcerated, the words just started coming from his head to the pen onto paper. And now that he's out and trying to stay on the right and narrow, we looked economically what was going to be good for him. To do a vanity press? No, that wasn't going to be good. A publisher like Ladero Press, who reads your manuscript and decides if they're going to, like you said earlier, publish your book because they think Ladero Press would be good, but Ladero Press still needs to see what you've done to get the story out. And so we worked with this young man to get his first story out on audiobook. And it allowed him to do 2 things. It allowed him to get some support from people who always knew he could do it. Oh, I knew you could do more than just go back and forth to prison. It allowed him to make some money by selling the audiobook, and then fine tune his writing skills and add more to that initial manuscript that we can now submit to a publisher for consideration. This young man is going to be a part of the Fresh Book Festival on January 8th and 9th, 2021. And I'm so excited for him. He's nervous, because he doesn't know this whole Zoom thing and how are these people going to be able to contact him. And it's an international book festival. So let me tell you about the Fresh Book Festival. FRESH is an acronym for fiction, romance, erotica, spirituality, and health. And it is an annual event that takes place in Daytona Beach, Florida, every year in January. January 8th and the 9th, 2021 will be the 10-year anniversary of the festival. And I think that's how my husband bribed me to move to Daytona Beach, because he said, well, you got a book. You wrote a couple books. Let me take you to this book festival where you can meet other people. And I fell in love with the Fresh Book Festival. You get to meet other authors that write in your genre. You get to meet editors, folks that format the book, folks that publish the book. Eventually, the book festival started introducing us to authors that produced movies. So the Fresh Book Festival was then a film festival, and it always has music involved because, music just sets the tone for everything. So the website is freshbookfestivals.net with an S on the end of festival, freshbookfestivals.net. And I recommend that anybody and everybody sign up. If you like to read, you will get to meet the authors and you can secure their books from them. If you want to write, you'll be able to talk with other folks. You'll be able to help figure out how to promote your book through shows like yours, Kelly. And, everybody wants to be on Oprah, but we got to get the foundation done.
Right,
we got to get the kinks out before
there are
Oprah
steps to get to Oprah.
Yeah.
You got it.
And some of those steps are at the Fresh Book Festival. There are some people that have scripts that want to turn their books into stage plays. And we've been learning how to do that. And so this year, the Fresh Book Festival is virtual because of, COVID. However, the boost is that it is international because it is partnered with a London book festival. And so you can log on to freshbookfestivals.net and register as an attendee for free. You will get a whole schedule, where to go on Zoom. You'll get to meet our authors from the Confinement Chronicles audiobook series. They'll be talking about why they wrote about faith and mental health during the coronavirus pandemic. Oh my goodness, just relationships. People write books about relationships, who to date, who not to date. So again, I'm excited about one of our newest authors, Ronald Stafford. He wrote his first book coming out of as he was coming out of prison. We produced it straight to audiobook. He's going to be a featured author at the Fresh Book Festival, and he is as nervous as a cat. So y'all please log on and say, hey, Ronald, how you doing? Angie B told us all about you. Yeah. So
that is so great. So the festival is January 8th and 9th and 10th?
8th and 9th. Correct.
January 8th and 9th. It's 2 days.
Yeah.
And so because it's virtual, is it pretty much all day? How does it work on a virtual platform?
Child, it's going to be all day. And when you register for free, you'll get the schedule. Who's up at 9 a.m., who's up at 10 a.m. I'm honored to be opening the festival with prayer on the 8th. And then my husband Barty will open with a song on the 8th. And then there are, other musical interludes and a movie thrown in there for the 2 days. So yeah, it's definitely going to be worth it. I think the jewel for me and the Fresh Book Festival is that on Saturday around 10 a.m., we'll have children that will be interviewed. Some of the children have written books, and some of them are reading books. And so it goes right back to listening, improving literacy. We've got an 8-year-old that wrote something about how frustrated she was with the coronavirus and not being able to see her friends at school. We've got a 9-year-old that wrote about having to celebrate her birthday on Zoom because of the coronavirus. And we've got a young lady, a 9-year-old, that wrote her own book. And she's going to read a portion of a 9-year-old author that has done so many interviews. Oprah should be calling her. She's already done so many interviews about this book and working on 2 more books. And you were like, what? You writing a book about unicorns? Then we've got a 15-year-old that's going to be reading a book, 16-year. I mean, it's just, so the sessions from the Fresh Book Festival are all molded and shaped to where a wide variety of people would become interested in it. They'll be able to see, hey, if that 8-year-old can do it, I can do it. Hey, if that 60-year-old over there can do it. In fact, that's the testimony for our publisher, the Darrow Press. She came to a business workshop that my outreach ministry hosted. She came to the workshop just to see, meet other business people and what they were doing. And she met an author that was in her 60s. And this author said she had always had this book inside of her. And finally, it took her later in life to get it out. And the publisher said, I've been working on a book too. And if she could do it, I could do it. So now not only has her publisher written several books of her own, but now she publishes other people and she pays us for writing books. It's not a vanity press. I ain't got to pay her. I submit my manuscript to her. She looks it over. She says, Angie B, I think we could do something with this. And here's a check that you can take to the bank. I'm like, praise the Lord. Let me keep on writing. So that's what happens when people like you and I, Kelly, we get together and we put our heads together and the Lord anoints us to know people and to have shared experiences so that then we can help somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. I truly believe that. I definitely started the podcast, and it's so funny. I started the podcast not going in it to help other authors. That was not my thought when I started it. I started it as a unique way to promote my own book. But as I started to do this, I realized that I could help others promote their books and get themselves out there and reach whatever goal or dream or aspiration it is that you may have, whatever that is.
Right.
But I think the podcast is a great way to do it. And the podcast, even at this time, sitting here in January, is still relatively new. It's not even 90 days old. And I've had such a wonderful time meeting such wonderful authors, poets, people like yourself, editors, just people who are coming out of the woodwork asking me if they can be on my podcast, and I'm looking for you, asking you to be on my podcast. And
you're the Oprah for us.
And that's great because I just want to help. And so I really hope that the listeners understand that. And another reason why I'm doing it is as I was out trying to promote my book and trying to figure out what that looks like and try to market it. And I realized that everybody was nickeling and diming me to death, right? I'll tweet you out for $15. I'll send an email for $25. And I was doing all these things and it doesn't sound like a lot at the time. $10, $15. But when you go back and it adds up, you're out $300-$400, and you don't even know.
It can blow a budget.
You don't even know if that marketing is going to work, right? Because there's no guarantees on it. And so I think the marketing is probably the big question mark for most people. How do I market my book? And so for me, it was, I'm going to start this podcast. But then I thought, well, if I'm going to promote my book, why can't I help you promote yours? And so it's worked out great because I find I personally get more joy out of helping others than I did helping myself.
I want people to think about starting a business as an author like you would prepare a delicious meal. A good meal has a piece of chicken, a piece of cornbread with hot butter, maybe a piece of corn, some green beans, a salad, and a piece of red velvet cake for dessert. I mean, there's different aspects of this wonderful meal. So being an author has completely different aspects. You need an illustrator to make your commercial. To make your book cover. So go to the local college or the high school and find somebody who wants a career as a graphic designer. Work with them. Okay. You need somebody to edit. Do not give your book to your grandmama and them and ask them to edit. Okay. Yeah, you may have to pay the editor, but maybe the editor needs you to write a script for their commercial, or maybe the editor needs something that you have. Barter with people. Barter with people. You may want to look at narrating your own audiobook because you think you can't afford a professional company like mine. Please, ma'am, and please, sir, don't do that. You're going to fumble over some words. You're not going to know how to edit. You're going to get tired by the end of chapter 1. And who you talking to at the beginning of chapter 2? And does their audio sound like it matches yours? Does it sound like y'all in the same room or the same time zone? So don't try to be the entire meal. Let us stay in our zone. Yes, you can write a book and run a podcast, but don't try to do it all. Yes, you can write a book and have an audiobook production company, but don't try to do it all. It costs good money for me to set up my studio, for me to narrate audiobooks. It costs good money. And then if I catch a cold, I done lost my voice.
Right?
I got to tell the client, hold up, give me some time. I'll give you a discount. I'll give you an extra commercial. Do something, but don't try to create the whole meal yourself. Don't try to be everything that's on that plate. Stay in your lane. Do what you got to do. And that goes for your genre as well. I thought that I could write a romance novel. But if all I could envision the characters doing was kissing and holding hands, that may not be romance. That may be, a sweet romance is what my publisher told me. I thought maybe I could write about health because I've had health challenges. Well, just because I've had health challenges don't mean my challenges are going to help somebody else get over. I'm talking about alopecia. Some people may not be ready to be bald. They may still want a wig. So You got to stay in your lane. And if my lane is spirituality, because I just write what the Lord tells me to write, then let me find the scriptures that coordinate with the gospel song that that goes with on the hip hop record that allows me to be able to do what I do. Promotion is very important when you're an author. It's important. If you're going to open up a bakery down the street, you got to promote, but you got to look at ways of staying in your budget and doing what is going to be beneficial for each of you. So that's where I am. That lesson was something I learned by attending several years of the Fresh Book Festival. It was something that I learned because I self-published one of my books. I will never do that again.
Self-publishing is work, and most of the authors that I talk to are self-published. Mm-hmm. And when I talk to them, we all have similar stories about we've got this book now. What?
Yeah, right.
And that seems to be something that, like I said, we get lost in. How do I promote? And you've said a whole lot of different ways to promote. I don't think most people think about bartering.
Because what you don't realize is your gifts and talents will make a way for you. So that way can be several different ways. It can be several different ways. I've bartered with editors. I say, okay, I'll do your audiobook if you edit and format my book. I've taken on interns that wanted to be graphic designers and say, okay, design my book cover. I've worked with interns that wanted to be photographers. Okay, do my photo shoot for me, because every author needs a good photo shoot, And when you're looking at doing little things, think about who is already in your circle that can do that. I've got a junior evangelist that loves to do makeup. So she's my makeup artist when I get ready to do a photo shoot. Okay, I can still mentor her and speak to her, and we can still talk about what cometh from the Lord. One of my book covers was designed by a young man who was an intern, spent a summer with us, and now he's my godson. And I've been able to train my niece and my nephew to be voice actors. My niece almost doesn't have time to narrate an audiobook for me anymore because she's off doing commercials for car companies and insurance companies up in Michigan. I'm like, Sandra B, do you mind? Your auntie needs you to narrate an audiobook. Well, auntie, you have to wait. So what can you pour into somebody else? What can you barter with someone else for? What can you do for someone else? All that comes back to the more people you can get involved in your book, the more people will help sell the book. My godson is always like, buy my godmama's book. I designed the cover.
Right?
The editor, I don't mind once the editor writes my opening, writes a review. I had an author who contacted me and wanted me to write a review for her. Okay, that's great, but what's in it for me? People are always wanting to know what's in it for them. So give them something. Hey, I'll write a review for you if you can, introduce me to your pastor, because I just wrote a spiritual book about motherhood, and maybe I can have a book signing with the pastor's mother's board of the church. That's 20 or 30 old women right there that want to get together over tea and listen to you read a portion of your book to them. These women love to support young ministers and young people that are doing things. And they always got money down in their bosom that they can pull out in exchange for your book. So you've got to, look at what the pandemic did. We couldn't even go visit people in the nursing homes.
Right.
So I contacted their activities director and said, hey, can I email you a copy of this audiobook? Get all the old people around, give them some cookies and milk and let them listen to it. I got more reviews than I knew what to do with.
Wow.
And it didn't cost me anything.
That is so smart. So, and you got all these great ideas, and that's what I would call out of the box thinking, because again, most people do not think like this. Mm-mm. You have had some experiences and you have some knowledge, and it was really, I am really happy that we connected. I didn't know, because you had said to me, can we barter? And I thought, well, I don't really have anything to barter. I just have this podcast. And if you want to come on and talk about yourself, great. What's in it for me? That hopefully you'll help me promote it. But I didn't have, when you said barter, I thought, well, I don't really have anything.
Everybody has something. Everybody has something. So in our barter, and I'll tell all your audience about our barter, I'm going to send you a radio commercial to air that's going to help us promote the Confinement Chronicles audiobook tour in 2021. We're going to 8 cities. We want people to come out and meet the authors that wrote about their coronavirus pandemic stories for the Confinement Chronicles. We want them to be able to say, hey, I want the audiobook. Hey, I want to learn to be an author. Hey, I want to. So we'll barter. We'll promote your show. You air our commercial. And maybe when we come to your city, we can meet. You've got to think out of the box. You can't just sit up in your room, typing on your computer and having a book and don't go out to meet people. And then going to church on Sunday and wondering, well, what is the church building doing for me? Here's my tithe, here's my offering, but how is it blessing me? So take the two and marry them, put them together. People all over the world right now are hurting. And they're listening to shows like yours and they're thinking, how can I get out of this slump? And then you introduce them to Evangelist Angie B, who is an award-winning radio show host, Amazon #1 best-selling author, an evangelist with my own traveling ministry. And I tried to commit suicide 3 times before it all started. It's shows like yours that will help reach somebody that would find me unreachable, because I am the Queen Bee, Evangelist Angie B. I prophesy, I preach, I teach, and I write. And they're like, oh, she Oprah. So you keep doing what you're doing. Keep offering to barter. Keep working with people, and keep letting them do what the Lord has instructed them to do. Now, can I tell you a little bit about Confinement Chronicles? Do I have?
You absolutely can. You do have time.
Okay. This is the introduction for every audiobook out of the 10 volumes. Each volume is at least an hour in length. but they all have this part that I want to read to you. And it says, "When the Lord first instructed me to produce an inspirational audiobook, I never dreamed that authors from far and wide would contribute to this project. As they continued to send us their stories, I slowly began to realize that all of these stories would not fit in a 60-minute audio. Why the 60-minute specification? Well, although we are now in the age of MP3 players, there are still people that want to listen to a compact disc, and most CDs can hold up to 60 minutes of audio. I was thinking small, but God showed me His bigger picture. Soon, we had enough stories to fill Volume 1 and even Volume 2, and this was only May 20th, 2020. The posted deadline for submissions was June 1st, 2020, and I was still waiting on contributions from 3 more people. Look at God. Now I understand that the Confinement Chronicles will never end, just like the Word of God never grows old. There will be confinement chronicles of our minds and our relationships. There will be confinement chronicles of our finances and our lack of faith. In one way or another, these inspirational audiobooks will continue to encourage us to hear the Word of God, and they will encourage us to write, and they will inspire us to share. Now, we have arrived at Volume 5, and we are sharing testimonies of how people were paid in a pandemic. Although this volume may have been released out of numerical order because Volumes 1 through 9 are already available on the website, the following stories are well worth the wait. This volume includes business options and financial tips for surviving during any economic drought. And it includes authors from various cities throughout Florida, a newlywed couple, and a contribution from an anonymous author in Michigan. Our first contributor to the Confinement Chronicles was so excited about this topic that she added it to her YouTube show, and she submitted it to be included. We'd like to thank everyone that contributed to the Confinement Chronicles series, and we invite you to visit www.daqueenbee.com to secure your volume. That's DAQUEENBEE.com. Thank you, Sister Kelly, for allowing me to share that, because I think it wraps up everything that we were talking about today. We want to work together to share what we have.
Thank you so much, Angie, for being on the podcast. All of Angie's links on how to reach her, websites, the information for the festival coming up this weekend, all of that information will be in the podcast description. Again, Angie, thank you so much for being with me. Definitely the door is always open. You are now an official member of the book club. You are welcome at any time. You just need to reach out to me, and I will make room for you in my schedule and make sure that you get some airtime whenever you want.
Bless your heart. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of your listeners. God bless you all. Have a good night.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Bright Headed Publishing Audiobook Book Club. We just wrapped up with multi-talented author, motivational speaker, Angie B. Angie shared some great information with us. There's a great festival coming up this weekend, January 8th and 9th, for authors. It's free to register. All the information is in the podcast description, and hopefully you'll be able to attend. Thank you so much for being a part of BHP Audiobook Book Club. I have been your host, Kelly Morgan. Until next time, keep writing.